but that sun could spark 1 or 2 showers through the afternoon, anywhere from Borders towards Kent. Elsewhere, a fine end to the day, a bright one, and also warmer. Temperatures typically around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. Now, through Saturday evening, watch as this cloud slowly thickens from the west. It will grind to a halt across the northwest of the country. Perhaps a little more cloud just moving down towards the southeast. We'll see some clearer skies here, and that's where the lowest temperatures will be. Certainly a bit of a chilly start to the day on Sunday, but it'll be a damp morning across western and northern parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, the Isle of Man, perhaps even Cumbria, down towards the western side of Lancashire. Temperatures here will hold up. Elsewhere, as I said, a bit of a cool start on Sunday. But the cloud will break across eastern counties, the far north of Scotland seeing some sunshine, drying up across Northern Ireland through the afternoon as we see that rain just become confined to more western parts of Scotland. And here's your outlook into next week. It's dry, it's fine, high pressure, and feeling warm with some sunshine.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree, that's what we like on
Absolutely.
Jubes and Kerr.
Come and join us, GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 7 o'clock and I'm Darren Grimes in for Laurence Fox, who's trapped abroad in a hotel somewhere in North Africa. Thank you very much, British Airways. First up, folks, President Biden is doddering his way around Ireland at the moment, looking for some routes. We'll be giving you the analysis from across the pond on both sides to see how they reckon it's landed. Then I'm going to debate the week's news with the Fox and Hounds panel. I'm the Fox and I welcome two news hounds to digest Labour in an internal trans row. Whether or not a convicted rapist should be allowed to keep and spend a lotto win, and the end of days drama that is Tupperware, unfortunately. And finally, and most importantly, I want to hear from you. Send me your views at gbviews@gbnews.uk. That's all coming up after the headlines with the wonderful Polly Middlehurst.
Darren, thank you. Good evening to you. Our top story on GB News tonight. Nurses are going to be staging another round of strikes after rejecting a pay offer from the government today. Royal College of Nursing members voted to reject the offer of a 5% pay rise this year, as well as a cash payment for last year. The action will run from 8 o'clock in the evening on the 30th of April for 48 hours, and for the first time will involve nurses working in emergency departments, intensive care and cancer care. It follows an earlier announcement by Unison that its NHS members had overwhelmingly accepted the same offer. Paediatric nurse Olivia Princewell told GB News she thinks the government could have offered more.
Junior doctors work for incredibly long hours. So do nurses in conditions that are absolutely ridiculous. To them come to work and be happy with the job. Okay, that's not even safe for the patient. So what we're trying to do here, and I believe that's what everyone is trying to achieve, is come to a situation where there is a sort of agreement between us nurses, the junior doctors, and also the government to feel like when you're going to work, you're safe.
A mother and a father have been found guilty of murdering their baby son on Christmas Day. Stephen Bowden and Shannon Marsden inflicted repeated acts of severe violence on their 10-month-old baby boy, Finley. He'd only been placed back in their care for 39 days before he was killed, despite social workers asking for a longer transition period. A child safeguarding review has now been launched. French lawmakers have today voted in favour of raising the pension age in the country from 62 to 64. Protesters have been gathering in front of City Hall in Paris to voice their opposition to the government's decision. There's been some trouble tonight with some vehicles on fire as well. President Macron's pension reform triggered weeks of protest right across the country. The new legislation, which was given the go-ahead by France's Constitutional Council, will be implemented from the 1st of September. However, union leaders have said that if Macron enacts the pension law, no union leader will engage further talks with him. Now, the US president has been brought to tears after a chance meeting at an Irish church with the priest who performed the last rites on his son, Beau. Father Frank O'Grady performed the sacrament for Beau Biden, who died of brain cancer in 2015. The president visited Knock Shrine in County Mayo as part of his final day of engagements. It brings Mr Biden's 4-day trip to Ireland to a close, which the former Taoiseach Enda Kenny called the longest presidential visit ever to the island. And just lastly, a European rocket is on its way to Jupiter right now, 4.1 billion miles away, to explore whether or not it can support life. It's going to take more than 8 years for the 6-ton spacecraft called JUICE to get there. It's going to spend around 3 years using instruments to investigate whether the planet's 3 moons can support life in its oceans. It's a £14 billion mission, and if all goes well, JUICE should reach Jupiter by July 2031. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on the TuneIn app. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I want to talk to you about Joe Biden, first of all. Joe Biden, he didn't have as much time for Britain as he did for Ireland. We've seen newsreels there in our bulletins. He didn't fly the Union Jack on the Beast, the US president's Cadillac, but he did, of course, fly the Irish flag. He had time or two for a selfie or two with an alleged member of the IRA, the former Sinn Féin leader, Gerry Adams. And he made a demand to the Democratic Unionist Party, Ulster Unionists, who are yet to agree to restore power share in that Stormont. to get back to the business of government. Quite why, though, they should listen to doddery old Joe and Sinn Féin is totally beside me, because it's pretty clear, ladies and gents, that Sleepy Joe, whose link to Ireland is about as strong as my own link to Ireland, and you don't hear me wolfing on about it every 2 seconds, he's guided by a really virulent anti-British sentiment. And it's led to him turning down an invitation to His Majesty the King's coronation, an event that hasn't happened since the 1950s. It's a pivotal moment in the rich tapestry that is our nation's history, a history, of course, shaped through the stories of kings and queens. We in the UK didn't vote for the whackery and wokery of Biden's Democrats. We voted for Brexit, for Boris, and for bold action that delivers for Britain. As Vice President in 2015, Joe Biden said that no one wearing orange, a colour associated with Ulster's Unionists, would be welcome in the White House. He referenced beating the British unit, the Black and Tans, from the Irish Independence War, instead of New Zealand's All Blacks. A gaffe or a deliberate provocation against the British? Now, throughout his lengthy career and, of course, his long life, in my view, Biden has firmly stuck 2 fingers up to the British Crown, to our nation, to our voters, and actually sought to besmirch our history, actually making comparisons between Northern Ireland and the Israel-Palestine conflict. In my view, he is absolutely no friend of the British people.
See this tie I have with a shamrock on it? This was given to me by one of these guys right here. Was a hell of a rugby player, and they beat the hell out of the Black and Tans. Oh, God. It was but it was when you were at a Soldier Field, wasn't it, the game? Chicago. And after it was all over, he gave my brother, allegedly for me, but if it wasn't, I still took it. I still got the tie. I wear it with great pride. And so thank you all for the homecoming welcome. The bad news for all of you is we'll be back. There's no way to keep us out, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
What do you reckon, deliberate or not? Because I think, folks, ultimately, a little bit like that infamous scene in Love Actually, in which the Prime Minister stands up to the American bully that comes to Downing Street, I hope that actually the Unionists in Britain continue to stand up for our people over kowtowing in fear to a lame duck president that has weakened the West and emboldened the woke. As always, though, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you reckon President Biden is anti-British? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Now, Joe Biden has been doing the rounds of the Emerald Isle, as we've mentioned already this week, which appears to have been overshadowed by gaffes as well as leaks. He's talked about the UK needing to work closer with Ireland, because we haven't already, apparently. And joining me now to discuss this vital topic is Robert Wiener, former spokesperson for the Clinton and George W. Bush administrations. Robert, I thank you very much for your time. Now, Robert, the feeling that we have over here is that Biden doesn't really like Britain. What say you?
Laurence, it's so great to be with you again, and thank you for having me. But I got to tell you, that's such nonsense. Yeah, he hates Britain so much that before he went over to Ireland, he had tea with the British Prime Minister. So it's just a lot of hooey. Britain is our best ally. But let me just tell you something. Every president goes to where his family roots were. Obama went to Africa and Kenya. Biden goes to Ireland. Trump goes to New York, and they're still taking his name off the buildings, and they're yelling, New York hates Trump as he goes by, and he can't get any protesters to show up to follow his cars. But the point is, every president goes to where his roots are, and he is having the blast of a lifetime. Your headlines are correct. Biden joy, says one paper. Biden meets his ancestral roots, is another paper's headlines. But you know what America is doing? This is page 13 of the Washington Post, where you finally get to Biden visits Belfast to mark Good Friday Accord 25th. Page 13. And it has a great and analytical story, and it talks about all the pros and cons and how the peace agreement, which, by the way, they never mentioned that George Mitchell, who I hosted at the National Press Club, was instrumental in negotiating that. But they never get to everything that you guys are talking about, that he hates Britain. Of course he doesn't hate Britain. We love Britain.
So, Robert, then what do you say to unionist communities who see Joe Biden making a joke about the black and tans, a unit, a regiment in the Irish War for Independence, instead of the All Blacks of New Zealand? Do you think that was a deliberate attempt to stir up resentment?
Well, what I saw in the clips I read was him trying to build peace, to make sure that the security of the agreement from 25 years ago holds, that there isn't terror, that there isn't war, that there isn't gunfire. That's what I saw Joe Biden trying to do.
So why bring up a war that took place 100 years ago?
He's trying to have a lot of fun in his home of his ancestry.
Well, absolutely. But if he is so obsessed with his ancestry, I would argue he doesn't know very much about its history if he wants to bring up a reference like that whilst trying to advocate peace on the island of Ireland.
Let me just say, you guys know every nitty-gritty part of it because you live there, and you should, and that's wonderful. And I appreciate that you know your history and it's accurate. He's dealing with a lot of stuff. He's dealing with a Senate that doesn't have a full membership. He's dealing with inflation. He's dealing with all of Donald Trump's prosecutions. And, you know, we've talked about that previously on your show. He's got a cavalcade of prosecutions coming up. He's dealing with China. He's dealing with Iran. He's dealing with a lot of stuff. And that's why it's page 13 of the Washington Post. This is a vacation trip for him, essentially. And it's a really fun one for him, and one that he'll remember, and you guys will remember. And all of the press clips that I've seen show all of the Irish people having a very good time with Joe and tapping beers with him and everything. So I'm not sure that you got it right. Trump did 40,000 lies. Biden makes a few gaffes.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump, though, was pretty unapologetic about his love for the British monarchy and all the rest of it. I mean, President Biden has in the past, talked about Britain's history in quite derogatory terms. I mean, what do you say to the fact that actually under Biden, a lot of commentators and all the rest of it are saying that actually the special relationship ain't so special anymore?
Oh, it's very special. But let me say this. Oh, you're going to hate me. You're never going to invite me on your show again. Do you know what I have for the date of the coronation?
What's that?
On my calendar? Turned TV off. And I think a lot of Americans are going to do that. And
Americans love the monarchy. They love it. They're obsessed with the royal family.
Some, yes. Especially... I don't understand how you guys pay for that and use it as a vehicle of government. Trump wants an autocratic system, but luckily, your monarchy is not the power. Your electoral system is your power.
Well, Robert, we're going to have to leave it there. But I tell you what, though, on that note, I would argue that give me King Charles over President Biden any day of the week. But we'll leave it there on that note of disagreement. Thank you very much, Robert Wiener there. Now, this show isn't complete without Mr. Fox's thoughts, of course. Lawrence, hello? Are you there? He's there. Are you free yet, Lawrence? Are you free? Where are you right now?
I'm sat in my hotel room, Darren, having come back from the airport last night. British Airways being a perfect metaphor for Britain, actually. It's terrible, really expensive, and doesn't work well.
Oh, well, hopefully you're making the most of it. Lawrence, what did you make of that discussion there? What did you ultimately think about Biden's visit? Was it a snub to Britain?
I think it's a huge snub to Britain. But, we've had this stuff with Obama, haven't we, before, when he said Britain was going to go to the back of the queue on Brexit and stuff like that. And there's something about Democrats who hate our monarchy. I think probably because Democrats hate the passing of wisdom on through the generations. So, this illusion of a special relationship with Trump, whether you like him or hate him, really cared about our relationship and has strong ties to this land as well as Biden. Biden's feels very manufactured. Trump's feels much more real. So I think it's a terrible snub not to go to the coronation of King Charles, and Biden would probably get lost anyway, on the way from the car to the front door.
Indeed. I mean, I'm looking at the Biden family's family tree, Laurence, and you've got to go back to the 1800s to find Biden's Irish ancestry. I mean, that's the same as my family tree. You go back to the 1800s and there are the Irish. But I don't, wax lyrical about the fact that I've got this ancestry dating back to the 1800s. Do you not think he needs to get over it? He's obsessed.
It's very confected, isn't it? The whole thing feels very, very confected. And he said, I think in his tweet when he sent out the family tree, he said, I passed on the values from my family to my children. And I'm like, which values are those, Joe?
Yeah.
Because we've observed a few of your values and they're not necessarily the ones you want to pass on to your children.
No. I mean, Laurence, where are you at on this argument that actually communities in Ulster, the DUP, of course, didn't vote for the Windsor Framework, the reform to the Northern Ireland Protocol that President Biden was saying, come on, this is great, best thing since sliced bread. A lot of unionist communities are saying, get yourself back to America and mind your own business.
Well, I definitely think if you asked Joe Biden what the Windsor Framework was, he'd go, come on, man. I don't know. It's Windsor. It's a framework. It's great. Good, man. I don't think he knows Monday from Tuesday. So, bearing in mind the Windsor Framework is fairly complicated. I just think it's very divisive to get on a plane to come to the nearest country possible to our own country, which upholds its constitutional monarchy, and to snub us in this way, and to essentially, to rattle the cage for one island, United Ireland, and it's not what you expect from a classy person, whether you agree or disagree with our politics or not. And I don't think Joe Biden is a classy person on any level whatsoever.
All right, Laurence, we're going to get you back on from that very nice hotel room. I tell you what, I'm going to be asking GB News for a pay rise after seeing that. Very nice indeed.
It was a freebie.
Still
It was not
we're
great.
going to reconnect with Laurence, as I say, since it is his show, of course. You won't want to miss that. But next up, we've got foreign policy analyst Niall Gardner to talk more about the Biden visit and the ties to the US and those security leaks. What's going on there?
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Thank you for your company. If you've missed, though, Robert Wiener's talk just before the break there, then you missed a cracking discussion. And I would suggest that maybe, just maybe, my next guest is going to disagree completely. So joining me to discuss US and Ireland foreign policy in a bit more depth is the fantastic Niall Gardner, Director of the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation. Niall, thank you very much for your time. What do you reckon the Biden visit told people in the US about the UK and about President Biden's feelings toward us here in Blighty?
Well, Darren, thanks very much for having me on the show today. And I think that Joe Biden's message to the UK is that he doesn't care about Britain. This is, I think, one of the most anti-British presidents in modern US history. And Biden has behaved in extremely dismissive fashion towards the United Kingdom. He is somebody, of course, who seems to elevate Ireland and also the European Union above the special relationship with the United Kingdom. He's also a spectacularly rude individual, lecturing the British Prime Minister over Northern Ireland and Brexit policy. Who does he think he is? In the meantime, of course, he's hobnobbing with Irish elites, including Gerry Adams, of course, and for many decades, Joe Biden was an enthusiastic supporter of the IRA, terrorist movement. And so you can see where this is all coming from. And Biden began his presidency by throwing a bust of Winston Churchill out of the Oval Office, just as Barack Obama did before him. President Trump brought the bust back, and Biden removed it. And I have to say, I do think Biden is a disaster for America, is a disaster for the free world. And he is, treating Britain with absolute disdain, a fundamental lack of respect, and of course he's kowtowing to the EU elites, including those in Ireland as well.
Niall, I wonder, that contempt that you speak of, evidenced by President Biden towards Britain, do you think personally that actually the change in Prime Minister from, of course, Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to now Rishi Sunak, that actually President Biden feels that he can completely walk all over Rishi Sunak? Is that fair?
Yeah, and that's actually a very interesting point, Darren, because the Biden White House absolutely hated Boris Johnson and they intensely disliked Liz Truss. In fact, Biden directly intervened, attacking Liz Truss's tax policies. And so Biden was part of this sort of anti-growth coalition trying to oust Liz Truss because they didn't like her low-tax, pro-economic freedom approach, which undercut, of course, the big government Americans. With regard to Rishi Sunak, I do think that Joe Biden, his advisors, view Sunak as a somewhat, I would say, softer leader. I think they do believe they can push Sunak around. Hence, you have Biden lecturing Sunak over the Windsor Framework, over trying to force the DUP into what is actually a very bad deal overall. And I think that they do, in the White House, view Sunak's Downing Street as a walkover and far easier to push around compared to Boris Johnson's Downing Street, for example. Sunak needs to stand up for Britain. He needs to stand up to Biden. He needs to tell Joe Biden, go mind his own business. It's not the role of the US president to be lecturing the British people over their own Brexit policy and Northern Ireland policy. Joe Biden has yet again been acting as an extremely arrogant, buffoonish character on the world stage and demonstrating his clear, absolute hatred towards Britain. And the British Prime Minister's got to be tougher. He's got to stand up to Biden.
I mean, as I said at the start of the show, at the top of the show there, I actually feel like saying to President Biden, of course, he's not going to listen to me, but, you know, I feel like saying to him, we voted for Brexit, we voted for Boris, we voted for, you know, bold action to actually get Britain working again. We didn't vote for Joe Biden and the whackery and wokery that he's presided over in the United States of America. I actually think, Niall, he's weakened the West.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that Joe Biden has been an absolute disaster for not only the United States, but for the entire free world. His track record as president has been absolutely catastrophic. And one only has to look at the Afghanistan withdrawal, for example, as an example of that. Also, he leads the most far-left US administration in American history, completely taken over by, frankly, woke far-left extremism. And he's trying to export that across the world. And needless to say, Joe Biden loves the EU. He bows down to the bureaucrats in Brussels. He hates Brexit. He has no respect at all for the democratic will of the British people. And I do think that the Biden presidency has been a monumental failure and a monumental disaster for America. And Biden's just an embarrassing president, actually. He is somebody who walks around the world stage, and people are mocking, I think, American leadership or the lack of it right now.
I mean, just briefly, Niall, if you would, but Robert Wiener there talking from the former Clinton and Bush administrations, and he was talking about how actually, you know, President Biden's visit, we should feel that quite lucky that he's come here. But equally, you know, he spent more time in Ireland. He didn't fly the Union Jack. He flew the Republic of Ireland's flag, and now he says he's not coming to the coronation. I mean, I don't think we are feeling quite so lucky to have President Biden coming over here. Or special
absolutely.
Indeed.
In fact, I think, you know, I imagine most Americans are just glad that Biden's out of the country for a few days, probably. You know, I think that I listened to Robert's interview earlier, and you know, I fundamentally disagree with what he's saying here. You know, Biden has treated Britain with absolute contempt, just spending a few hours, I think, on the ground in Northern Ireland, and then 4 days in Ireland. It says it all, really. And you know, this is a president who really, I think, fundamentally is ruining and damaging the US-UK special relationship, and his refusal to attend the coronation, King Charles III, is yet another insult here. You know, Biden, I think, is doing all he possibly can to undermine the ties with the United Kingdom. He's no friend of the British people, that's for sure.
Niall, we'll leave it with those wise words there. Thank you very much, Niall Gardner, for your time today. That's Niall Gardner from the Heritage Foundation. I'm delighted to say that the Fox is back. Laurence joins me once again from an exotic location. Laurence, what did you make of Niall's analysis there? I mean, I think he's right, and it's depressingly accurate, because I think under President Trump, we didn't realise the extent to which we had a real friend there, actually.
Well, he does make a really good point, which is that Biden is no friend of Britain. And if you listen to Victor Davis-Hanson, who I had on the show last week, who I think is one of the preeminent thinkers in this area, he's saying America is undergoing a revolution. It just doesn't know it yet. And, you know, with everything that's going on, this far left extremism that's going on in America, and Biden is overseeing it. Now, whether he's being puppet mastered, or whether he's doing it himself, which I thoroughly doubt, America is no friend of Britain at the moment. And, you know, it's amazing that he's also in Ireland whilst, you know, we've seen today the leaks that have come out of America in regards to what's going on in Ukraine. And, you know, for all we know, this man is dragging us very quickly into World War III. I think he's a stain on the American presidency, actually. Yeah.
It's very strong words there, Laurence. I mean, we had Robert Wiener on at the start, though, and of course, as you know, he was saying, President Biden, we should feel lucky in Britain. Do you feel lucky?
I feel incredibly lucky to be British. I think it's the greatest country in the whole world, Darren. I'm also, can I just say, I'm really pleased that you have to do all the moderating for Ofcom and I can just be rude. No, I think that I think that Democrats, essentially, you know, we've lost that same Democrat in the same way as in the UK. We've lost a traditional left-wing party. We don't have a left-wing party anymore. So the Democrats have gone down this world of path of far leftism, and Labour has done the same here. So these people hate nations, they hate borders, they hate pride, they hate nationalism, they hate flags, they hate everything. And you know, when what Victor Davis-Hampton was saying, that we're entering the civil war, is we're now being pitted against each other in such a fundamental way that we have to sit there, and some of us are going to defend our values and some of us are going to try and overwhelm them. And I think Biden is spitting in our face. And, you know, fortunately, all the stuff they're doing to Trump in terms of these unending litigations is just to try and stop democracy taking place from the party that talks about our democracy all the time. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, Laurence, I think you're right, and I think many of our viewers think exactly the same, and many of them actually, Laurence, want to know whether or not your passport, is going to actually work when you get back into Britain, I tell you that much. But coming back up, we're going to have more Fox, and we're going to have more of the Fox and the News Hounds panel, and we'll check in, as I say, with Laurence banged up abroad. I'll see you soon.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Welcome back. I'm still not Laurence Fox, sadly, but I am Darren Grimes, and I thank you very much for your company. I want to read out some of your reactions to the show so far. At Crazy for Glass on Twitter says, as long as he destroys America, talking about President Biden, he doesn't care what others think. He and his administration has made clear that, obviously clear to us in America, he's anti-American. Also, not even anti-British, he's anti-American. Helen says he's really insulted Britain. We don't need his interference, trying to blackmail them with a deal to get power sharing going again. No deal for the UK, though. Time America minded its own business. And Eileen says, come on, Eileen. She says, give this man a break. Fed up of hearing GB's views on Mr. Biden. Oh, Eileen's got me told, hasn't she? Well, I thank you very much, as I say, for your company. I'm in for Laurence Fox tonight, who's unable to successfully board a plane. This is the Fox and News Hounds panel. So first off, any holiday disaster from my panel. Have you ever had a holiday disaster, Anna McGovern?
I did last year, but not being stuck. It was my friend. In Greece.
Sounds quite nice, actually, doesn't it, to get stuck in Africa?
Probably.
Depends where you are.
Yeah, probably depends what part. No, my friend fell over and really badly messed up her leg, and then we had to go to one of the Greek hospitals, and it was very run down there. It almost made me thankful for our NHS in comparison to what we saw there. And we were stuck there for a few days. She couldn't move or anything. We had to get like a fit to fly test all very quickly. But yeah, that was quite a big disaster at the time. Happened halfway through the holiday.
That sounds like a total nightmare.
Yeah.
Lewis Oatley, I want to talk to you about something perhaps a little bit more serious than Laurence Fox getting stuck in wherever he is. The Labour trans story, where actually our very own Tom Harwood revealed exclusively for the channel that a secret row is exploding with Labour over the issue of trans rights. We know it's a very divisive issue. Many people care about it very strongly that watch this very show. Now, what do you make of that? Because, I mean, you're an activist in the B movement, at least, of the LGBT.
Yeah.
Have Labour got this wrong? Should Labour be out at Pride marches and LGBT Labour events and all the rest of it?
Well, I think, for me, the thing that's really clear on this issue is that Keir Starmer needs to actually remember he is a leader and lead. Reading the story, it seems a lot like he's just waiting to see which way the wind blows and he'll create his policy from that. Actually, no, Keir Starmer, this is, trans is a big topic and people really care about it. You have got to have a position on it that you believe in. And it's part of being a leader. He needs to look at his morals and kind of say, look, morally, where am I on this, right? And once he knows that, he can then say, right, so this is my position and this is what Labour's going to do about it. And then, crucially, if you are a leader, you then have to go out into the communities on all sides of that debate and say, look, this is my solution to it. This is why I think it's the right one. So you're going to have to come a little bit over here and you're going to have to come a little bit over here. And this is what we're going to do. He needs to sell it. But right now, it seems to be the policy is, we'll wait till we're in government, see which way the wind's blowing, and then we'll decide. Well, which is not good for anyone.
I mean, in my view, the man has got so many splinters on his bottom from sitting on the fence. He's been immense pain. It must be immeasurable. Anna McGovern, though, this issue has got the Prime Minister talking this week. He gave an interview earlier this week to Conservative Home, in which he said he disagrees with Sir Keir Starmer that 99.9% of women don't have a penis. Now, I mean, this issue, as we say, it's driving Labour mad. It's the Prime Minister's commenting on it. Where are you at?
I mean, I think that the next general election is going to be dominated by this culture war. And I think it's quite clear what Keir Starmer thinks. He can't define what a woman is. Adult human female. That is what a woman is. And I think he is staying on the fence because he's waiting to see where the wind blows. He wants to say what's going to attract the electorate, what's going to get him into number 10. Because I actually think that when they do get into number 10, they will push this agenda even further. But he's not going to say that publicly right now because he wants to attract what's going to get him into number 10, what's going to get him into power. So I think he's going to continue to stay quite reserved on this issue. It's not about his morals or values. He just wants to get in power.
Laurence Fox, we're going to set a fox among the hounds here. Laurence, do you reckon Sir Keir Starmer saying, look, I don't want to be seen with LGBT Labour at these highly visible pride marches and all these rallies for trans people and goodness only knows what else. Do you reckon this is clever politics?
No, I think it's dreadful politics. I agree with Anna that I think the more these cultural issues come to light, the more they're actually going to be election winners or losers. You do not want a leader of anything who cannot define what a woman is. And Keir U-turner will U-turn over anything if he thinks it's going to be popular with somebody. So ultimately, if you can't tell me what a woman is, I don't want you anywhere near a seat of any power whatsoever, because, you know, without women, there are no men. And we need to remember that. You know, it's crucially important. And also, women's sports and women's spaces shouldn't be the refuge of men that aren't very good at swimming, etc.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, that point there, I mean, is it proven that he's not ready for power, Sir Keir Starmer?
The election's a long way out. He can come out...
That long away?
About a year and a half, are we talking about?
He's going to come out. That's quite near, I think. Yeah.
Well, right. So anyway, he's got to think about his activists as well. As a bisexual activist that doesn't tie himself to any political party for exactly this reason, that I need to be in control of what I'm saying and doing, he's putting his LGBT Labour activists, you know, in harm's way. They're saying we don't feel comfortable going out because we're representing something that we don't really know what we're representing. So he does need to have a think about this and actually show some respect to the LGBT people that are putting in time and energy to kind of like make a position for Labour.
But Lewis, do they show respect though? Because at these marches, they all wear "Never Kissed a Tory" T-shirts, and I mean, 14 million people in 2019 voted for the Conservative Party. I imagine some of them have kissed a Tory.
Well, they probably have. I'm not here to police who people should and shouldn't be kissing. They can kiss and not kiss whoever they want.
But it's divisive. That's the point, right? It's divisive.
Well, it's a very divisive landscape at the moment. That is
I was going to say with
unarguable.
I was just going to say with Keir Starmer, the fact that he can't define what a woman is, I do not trust him in power to protect women's only spaces. You know, toilets, for example, men can identify as a woman and then use those spaces. Or women, you know, women's only sports, for example. I don't trust that he will protect that. I think that him being in power is going to put so many women in danger, and I don't want to see him anywhere near number 10.
Well, I mean, Laurence, last word to you.
I'd say that the LGB need to transition away from the TBQI plus blah blah blah, because we as I've said before on this show, which is my show, which is strange, that lesbian and gay and bisexual, I think even we've had a conversation about this. These are hardware issues. The transsexual and all the rest are software issues, and as is proving ever the case, they're mental health issues. Actually, so I 100% agree. You cannot have a leader of a political party who cannot define any simple binary in the most basic of terms. And if you can't do that, leave and get rid of your activists.
More coming up, so don't miss more from the panel and indeed the Fox, who can't be trusted, of course, to travel without a designated adult. But anyway, we'll be back soon.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Cheers very much for joining me, Darren Grimes, in for Laurence Fox, who's stranded himself abroad. Anna McGovern and Lewis Oakley are here chewing over some stories with hot opinions ready to be served. Now, this is quite a horrible story, actually, for very many reasons, which will become apparent very quickly. The convicted rapist who received life in 1988 for his grotesque attack on Shirley Woodman has been given access to the lotto jackpot that he won whilst in prison in 2004. Now, there's an awful lot to unpack here, so I'm going to turn to Anna first. I mean, Anna, first of all, right, I mean, he won it fair and square, so some people would say, well, we cannot be getting involved in what is a private transaction.
I think this is a horrendous story, and you know, it's an awful loophole that because he was on prison leave, I believe, over the weekend, where he got this ticket and then won all of that money. It was an illegal dispute near trying to get all this money. But Shirley Woodman, she was, campaigner, and she managed. She got OBE, I believe, for actually turning the law around so victims could get compensation for, for sexual assault, and rape. And I think that this is this is just an awful thing that he's just been able to access all of this money. I think that if he's truly remorseful what he's done, that should all go to charity. But I think the thing is, rapists, they are selfish people, and he just wants that for himself, so he's going to keep it.
Well, Lewis, on Anna's point, the daughter of Shirley Woodman, Shelley Wolfson, told the Mirror she gave all the money away to charity.
Bless
and
her.
It's what he should be doing with his money. He can do good with that money like my mum did. What say you?
Yeah, I agree. He should give the money away. Absolutely. I mean, this is a horrible story and kind of suggests that there is no such thing as karma.
Good.
I think the thing here, though, is we do have to think about the principles of things. Bad people that have done bad things. Can we, if in this case we say this is outrageous, he shouldn't have this money, we're going to go and take it. Well, what does that mean? So every criminal, we get to go and seize their assets?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, where does this lead to morally if we start doing that?
I mean, Laurence Fox, you're about to say something non-Ofcom compliant, aren't you, about this story?
He can have the money. Let him have the money.
You reckon he should have the money?
Pissed or not? No. Yeah, do what you want with it. Sorry, it's like I'm really sorry. I think I read the story. It's appalling what he did. It's vile. The victim's mother managed to get the law changed so that better things happen, which is a real good use of the money. But it just goes to show that you're exactly right. Karma doesn't exist, especially when you don't get money for nothing. So just give him the money and let him do what he wants with it. I don't think we should be impeding other people's things, and he should be left to live out his horrible little life, rich as he wants.
The state should get involved then and say, "Howie, cough up."
No, it's not our job. It's not the job of the state to do that. He won it off some silly lottery thing. I mean, that's why I don't buy lottery tickets. I think they're bad. It's one of the very few things I actually tell my kids. I'm like, don't buy lottery tickets. It's like, if you haven't earned it, look at all the stories of lottery winners who've had a horrible, horrible life the minute they've won. And I hope that that money is the biggest heavy curse around his neck. And I hope that he takes it to his grave in sadness.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Now, our next story then, the end of the faithful Tupperware. And do you know what? I have to confess to viewers, to make myself sound really thick, I actually didn't know that Tupperware was a brand name. I just thought Tupperware was, you know, a noun. But anyway, now, you've not settled into your home until you've, of course, got a kitchen drawer or a cupboard crammed full of these handy plastic tubs called Tupperware. I think that we've got a picture of Lewis and Anna's that we asked you to prepare earlier coming up on screen now. Now, there they are. Whose is that?
That's Lewis's.
That looks quite tidy, actually. Mine's all
I keep a tidy house.
Yeah. I don't know why I sound so...
There's not much... I live in student accommodation and you do not want to see student kitchens.
So, Anna McGovern, your image isn't on there? No,
my image is not on there, no.
Right.
You would not want to see that.
Are you upset about the end of Tupperware?
I think that it just shows about how society's kind of progressed. I think that the men are the main...
Because they're saying that actually this is down to the fact that, you know, women's rights, women, you know, don't need these things anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Lewis suggested that maybe we're just getting rid of plastic outright. What do you think of this?
I mean, I think it's just a trend where I think, you know, you've got access to more fast food, for example, so people are cooking less, and you've got women who are working more. So I think that this kind of shows that people aren't actually cooking as much. But in terms of Tupperware, also, I prefer to use stuff that isn't plastic, personally. So I'm not devastated about the end of Tupperware. But, yeah, I think this just shows about how society is progressing.
Yeah, Lewis, I mean, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in your camp where who knew until this story that it was a brand? We obviously need plastic containers. As a dad of three, I need plastic containers to keep things fresh in and send them off with. But do I need to be paying probably the prices that these people are offering? And, you know, I do think there probably is an environmental thing to it, where if you're going to spend... Well, I don't know, like, let's guess, 15 quid on a container. You probably want it to be glass and sustainable, whereas with me, it's like, this is what the takeout came in yesterday.
Laurence
Wash
Fox,
it out, have it with that.
I'm sure you're absolutely desperate to ensure your kitchen is sustainable.
Oh, yeah, I always am. No, I've got a lot of little things. I'm not I've got kids and you've got to put stuff in and send them off. But I think it's a sign of the times that we've become the little generation that moan at us for being, you know, bad with carbon or whatever we're meant to be doing, which is wrong. At the same time, live the most disposable life there possibly ever is. I think they were talking about the fact that the carbon footprint of a child born now is many times more than what my mother would have done, for example. So I think it's also a sad reflection on where society is in the fact that we don't celebrate the family, we don't celebrate somebody, you know, bringing the whole thing together, be it the husband or the wife, it doesn't matter. We seem to have progressed so quickly that now there's no one to look after the kids, therefore we don't need Tupperware and we don't need leftovers.
I mean, Lewis, do you worry about that?
No, I'm looking after kids and I still need Tupperware. I don't really think that we need to overthink this. It's just one brand dying and there's going to be loads of alternatives that are cheaper in the supermarket.
Now, all right.
Darren, how dare you say that I can't get on a plane? I tried to get on the plane.
You tried to get on the plane? Yeah, that's what he says. That's what he says. He tried so hard to get on that plane. He was having a margarita before the show. Now, I thank you very much for joining me tonight. Now, to Laurence for attempting to actually do some work today, I'm very grateful. And, of course, to Anna McGovern and Lewis Oakley, who did actually show up. Now, coming up next is the brilliant Mark Dolan. Mark, what's on the show tonight?
Darren, what a brilliant effort. Really enjoyed the show this evening. Well, I'll be dealing with Joe Biden. Does he have a problem with Britain? That's covered in my 9 o'clock Big Opinion. Plus, I'm joined in the first hour by radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Lots of big stories to get our teeth into, including the junior doctors' strike. I'll be asking whether those listening and watching the show support these strikes. Will people die Will health be curtailed in this country? Plus, we got tomorrow's papers at 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. It's all to come. Mark Dolan tonight. Don't go anywhere.
Yes, Mark.
Hello there, I'm Claire Nazir with your weather update. Now for the weekend, it's turning drier and warmer for most, although we will see some rain in the northwest on Sunday. And for the time being, low pressure still in charge through Friday evening and overnight. This weather front here sliding down towards the low countries, but some wet weather to come into the first part of Saturday morning across the far southeast. Elsewhere, you can see this ridge moving in from the west, and what that means, quieter conditions through a Saturday. This rain here through Saturday morning, though, will gradually grind to a halt across more eastern counties. Elsewhere, through the early hours, clearer skies. Watch out for a frost across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. More breeze down towards the west country, keeping temperatures here slightly higher. And a bright morning comes Saturday across much of Scotland, away from the southeast, Northern Ireland, northwest England, Wales and the west country, even the Midlands, seeing that cloud erode away. The rain slowly clears through the first part of the day towards the southeast. Brighter skies emerge, and what that means, we'll see some sunshine, but that sun could spark 1 or 2 showers through the afternoon, anywhere from Borders towards Kent. Elsewhere, a fine end to the day, a bright one, and also warmer. Temperatures typically around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. Now, through Saturday evening, watch as this cloud slowly thickens from the west.